It's strange how fast a home can shift its energy. Just last week, it pulsed with his voice, the shuffle of his feet, that off-key humming he did while shaving. Now it's stiller, brighter, lighter somehow, like the walls themselves exhaled relief. I'm Anna, 40, and I've never been more conscious of that number than I am now, not embarrassed, just keenly aware. I like the way time has shaped me, not just gracefully, but with certainty. I don't need to chase youth. It's never been the source of my magnetism. I walk into a room and people notice, not because I demand it, but because I carry a self-assurance that speaks before I do. And with him gone, my husband, now just a name in the past, I feel that even more. It started last Friday. A message flashed on my phone from an old friend. Thought you should see this. No preamble, just an image. A candid shot at a downtown cafe. And there he was, across from a woman maybe 25, leaning in, grinning that familiar smirk I once thought was meant only for me. It wasn't just disloyalty. It was the gall. That he thought I wouldn't see. That he thought I'd look past it. That he assumed I still needed him after all I've carried alone. So I ended it. No theatrics. No shouting. Just a quiet storm as I handed him a bag and shut the door. He didn't fight. I think he realized the moment I saw that photo it was over. Since then, he's been circling back. Calls. Messages. Waiting outside in the rain like some tragic novel character. I let be. Let him sit in the silence he gave me for years. Let him understand what it feels like to be irrelevant. Because that's what he became. He never lifted a tool around here, never brought initiative or depth, never truly saw me. In bed, he was like an uninvited guest, courteous, predictable, and barely present. He was a man who coasted beside my fire, borrowing its glow, never feeding it. I'm done providing warmth to those who let the flames die out. What he never realized, I was never scared of solitude. The truth is, I've always had someone who sees me. Luca. My son, 17. Adopted in paperwork only, never in spirit. He came to me as a quiet child, uncertain and small, shaped by instability. I made a promise then, a silent vow, to be the constant he never had. Now he's my foundation. He found me that night, when I tossed his father out. I was curled on the kitchen floor, wine glass forgotten, fury still smoldering under my skin. I didn't hear him come in. I just felt him sit beside me. No questions. No platitudes. Just his presence, strong and quiet, anchoring me. That kind of support, especially from someone his age, is rare. He waited until I wiped my face. You all right, Mom? He asked, his voice now deeper, still calm. I will be, I replied. And I meant it. Luca respects my strength. He's told me as much, how he notices the way I manage everything, fix what needs fixing, hold the line when no one else does. It humbles me, especially now when I feel cracked and tired. But through his eyes, I'm still whole, still unshaken. That first evening alone, we cooked together. Nothing extravagant, just pasta and grilled peppers, but it felt like a ritual. A beginning. We didn't speak of his father. There was no need. We laughed. He joked about my slow onion chopping. I tossed one at him. It hit his head, and for a second, he was little again. But he's not little anymore. That's what unnerves me some days. The way he looks at me now. It's not wrong, not exactly, but it's different. The way a young man looks at someone he trusts, someone he's drawn to. I push the thought away, try not to dwell on it. But I've noticed. Still, I'm his mother. His safe harbor. Now, I'm curled on the sofa, book open but untouched. Luca's upstairs, probably doing schoolwork or watching something. The house is hushed. But it's not empty. It feels waiting. I don't know what comes next. I don't know how long I'll keep ignoring the messages he sends. But I do know one thing. I'm no longer waiting. Not for love. Not for recognition. Not for anyone's permission. I'm living now. In my way. And that feels right. The next few days passed quietly. Not like the long silences that filled our home during the last stretch of my marriage. This was different. Softer. As if the house itself was learning to breathe again. Lately, Luca's presence had become more constant. He started showing up for my morning coffee ritual, even though I knew the taste didn't appeal to him. He'd sit there, hands curled around the mug, his hair still a mess from sleep, looking every bit like someone straddling the edge of boyhood and manhood. "You don't even like coffee," I joked one morning, lifting my brows over the rim of my cup. He gave me a slow smile. "It's not really about that." There was something in his voice that caught me off guard, plain-spoken and sincere. He didn't elaborate. I didn't ask. But that small reply echoed in my mind all day. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about choosing to sit with me, not out of habit or duty, but because he wanted to. That stirred something inside me, a space I hadn't felt awaken in a long while. That evening, we cooked dinner together again. Music played in the background, an old mix I'd forgotten about. Luca hummed along to a melody that predated him. I laughed. How do you know this one?" "You hum it when you clean," he said, dicing garlic with quiet focus. I guess it stuck. I stared for a beat too long. How many tiny things had he picked up on without me realizing? How many fragments of me had he gathered and tucked away? We ate at the kitchen island, our elbows brushing now and then. Talk wandered from school topics to old travel memories, to silly stories from when he was small. At one point, I laughed so hard I cried, and when I wiped my eyes, I noticed him watching me, not with worry, but with something softer. Later, when I went around the house locking up, I spotted him stretched on the living room couch. A blanket draped over him, a book resting on his chest. He wasn't reading, just staring upward like he was somewhere far away. "Hey," I said from the doorway. He turned to look at me, his eyes unreadable but gentle. "Hey. You all right?" A small nod. "Yeah. I just like this." "Like what?" He gestured around the dim, quiet room. "This. Us. You. Just this." The simplicity of it hit deeper than I expected. "I like it too," I murmured. I lingered. He didn't look away. There was something in his gaze that felt protective, reverent. And for a fleeting moment, something inside me stirred that I didn't fully understand. The next morning, he offered to help clear out the garage. We spent hours rummaging through boxes, sharing laughs over faded photos and useless old gadgets. At one point, I tried lifting a crate and felt his hand gently intercept mine. "I've got it," he said, close enough that his voice brushed against my skin. It was nothing dramatic, just a small touch. But it left a faint warmth that lingered even after he walked away with the box. I stood still, hand hanging in the air, trying to process the sudden hush in my chest. That evening, we ended up watching something on the couch. Halfway through, I felt the weight of his head settle lightly against my shoulder. He didn't say anything. Neither did I. My pulse quickened, but I stayed. I let my cheek rest against his hair. It was innocent in action. Yet it carried something more. His breathing slowed, and I found myself matching its rhythm, feeling grounded in a way I hadn't in years. When the credits rolled, he sat up slowly, brushing my hand gently as he reached for the remote. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. There was something unspoken there, not a step over a line, but a quiet understanding that something had changed. Later, in the dark of my bedroom, I stared at the ceiling, thoughts turning over. I didn't feel ashamed or confused. I just felt curious. Curious about where this path might lead. Curious how deep our connection might grow. Curious if the love I'd always given him had taken root and become something else, something even more powerful in return. It began with a storm. One of those slow-building ones, where the sky grays gradually until everything is cloaked in shadow. Thunder echoed just as I gathered the laundry, the wind yanking at the sheets like they had someplace else to be. I rushed inside as the rain let loose. Luca was upstairs. I called to him, still laughing at how soaked I was. He came to the top of the stairs, towel around his neck, hair damp from a shower, and a grin spreading across his face. "You look like you got in a fight with the clouds," he said, teasing. "I did," I replied, squeezing out my hair. "They won." He disappeared briefly and returned with one of his hoodies. "Here." I pulled it over my head without hesitation. It was soft, oversized, and carried a scent, clean soap and something warm I couldn't place. His gaze lingered for a beat too long, something flickering behind his expression. Then he turned and disappeared into the kitchen. We spent the evening inside, the rain clattering against the windows like applause. The power flickered once, then cut out completely. For a moment, everything went silent, except the rain. I lit candles, and Luca brought out an old camping lantern from the garage. It cast a soft, golden light across the living room, turning the walls into a canvas of flickering shadows. "Feels like we're in a cabin," he said, settling on the floor with a blanket draped around his shoulders. "Yeah," I said, settling next to him. Like the world paused, just for us. We played cards for a while, our laughter soft and unhurried. It was quiet intimacy, the kind that sneaks up on you. At one point, our hands touched while reaching for the same card. I didn't pull mine away. Neither did he. I felt his eyes on me, not in a way that demanded anything, but in a way that saw everything. "You always do that," he said softly. "Do what?" "Smile like you're trying to hide it." I glanced at him, heart thudding. Maybe I am. "Why?" "Because I'm terrified of what's happening," I wanted to say. "Because I'm afraid of where this could go." Instead, I shrugged. "Habit." Luca leaned closer, just enough for the space between us to hum with something silent and fierce. I could feel the heat of him, the steady rhythm of his breath. My pulse quickened. "Do you miss him?" he asked, voice low. "No," I answered truthfully. "Not even a little." His gaze didn't waver. "You deserve more." The air between us grew heavy, charged. He reached out and gently tucked a damp strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers brushed my cheek, slow, careful. I didn't move. "I don't want you to feel alone," he said. "I'm not," I whispered. Our faces were close, too close. I could see the faint line of a scar just beneath his eye, the one he got when he fell off his bike as a kid. I'd cleaned the blood myself. I remembered how he clutched my hand that day, how fiercely he'd trusted me even then. And now here we were, years later, sitting on the edge of something vast and dangerous. His hand lingered at my jaw, thumb grazing my skin. I felt his breath, warm, uncertain, against my lips. 1 second more, and I would have closed the distance. 1 second more, and we would have crossed a line neither of us could uncross. But I pulled away. Just slightly. Just enough. His hand dropped slowly to his lap, his eyes searching mine for understanding or forgiveness. "I'm sorry," he said, barely above a whisper. I reached for his hand, not to pull him back, but to anchor him. "No," I said, my voice trembling. "Don't be." Because I wasn't. It hadn't been wrong. It had just been real. And in that moment, we both knew something had changed between us, forever. The next morning, the house was still and silvered in the soft light of early spring rain. Luca had already left for his friend's birthday party. He'd mentioned it over breakfast with a casual smile and a teasing note in his voice, something about needing a night to hang out with people who don't fold his laundry. I laughed, even though I knew I'd miss him. It would be the first time I was truly alone since I kicked my husband out. A whole day. Just me. No Luca, no him, no one else. The idea sat strangely in my chest, half relief, half weightless fear. I walked through the quiet house after he left, my fingers trailing along the back of the couch, touching the edges of photos and books, as if reacquainting myself with the space I lived in. It was my house now. Mine. At first, the silence felt too loud, but I caught myself before the sadness could settle. No. I wouldn't let today feel hollow, so I gave it to myself. I lit candles, played soft music I loved but hadn't listened to in years. In the bathroom, I prepared a tray with all the little jars and creams and masks I'd been saving for someday.
Today was Sunday.
I exfoliated, steamed, scrubbed. I slathered lotion on my legs, wrapped my hair in a towel, painted my nails a deep, wine-red shade that made me smile to myself. I drank a glass of wine as I soaked in the bath, my toes peeking through the bubbles. The warmth wrapped around me like something sacred, something earned. I wasn't just healing, I was reclaiming. By the time evening settled, I felt soft, open, not lonely, but aware of my own presence in a way I hadn't felt in years. The house was dim, the wine warm in my chest. I changed into a thin robe, loosely tied at the waist, and padded quietly through the hall toward my bedroom, the feel of the carpet beneath my feet strangely intimate. The bedroom smelled like lavender from a sachet I'd placed under the pillows. I let the robe slip from one shoulder as I climbed onto the bed. A quiet sigh escaped me as I reached into the drawer beside my nightstand and pulled out the pink toy I kept hidden away, my small rebellion against the years of empty touch and one-sided desire. I settled against the pillows, letting my eyes close. It was about knowing myself, claiming what was mine, my peace, my pulse, my pleasure. And just as I felt the tension rise in my body, tightening like the quiet before a thunderstorm, I heard it. A knock. Then the door opened. I gasped, pulling the sheet over me instinctively. Luca stood in the doorway, backlit by the soft hallway light, his hand still on the knob, his brow furrowed with innocent concern. "Mom," my heart dropped into my stomach. Time seemed to freeze around the sound of my own breath. What are you doing?" he asked, his voice quiet, confused, as he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. I sat up quickly, clutching the blanket to my chest, my cheeks burning. "I thought you were at the party," I managed to say, my voice thin and too high. He took a step closer. I was, but it was loud and kind of boring, and I just felt like coming home. His eyes dropped, just briefly, and I saw it the moment realization hit. Not disgust, not shock, just understanding. His gaze met mine again, softer now. "I'm sorry," he said, and his voice cracked just slightly. "I didn't mean to interrupt anything." The room was filled with silence, the kind that wasn't empty, but full of something thick and unnamed. I swallowed, still frozen in place. "It's okay. Just give me a minute." Luca nodded once, slowly, and backed toward the door, his eyes never leaving mine. "Of course," he said gently. "I'll wait downstairs." And just like that, he was gone. The door clicked shut behind him. I sat there, heart pounding, the sheet still wrapped around me, the toy now silent beneath it. And I exhaled. Not in shame, not in regret, just the breath of someone who realized, in one instant, how deeply their world had changed. I didn't go downstairs right away. Instead, I stayed in my room for a long while, heart still galloping in my chest, staring at the soft folds of the blanket, as if it could tell me how to make sense of what had just happened. The house was quiet again, but it didn't feel like solitude anymore. It felt like waiting, like something unsaid had been left in the room, and both of us had heard it. When I finally made my way downstairs, the lights were dim, and Luca was sitting on the couch, his long frame curled into the cushions, eyes fixed on the dark TV screen as if it might flicker to life and give him a distraction. He turned at the sound of my steps, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. "I didn't mean to walk in on you," he said quietly, his voice even softer than before. I nodded. "I know." He looked down at his hands, then up at me again. "It's just,
I didn't want to be at that party."
I didn't want to be anywhere else but here." My chest tightened. "Luca." "I know," he said quickly, reading the hesitation in my voice. "I know we can't."
"I know what this looks like."
"But I can't pretend I haven't felt it." There it was. All the unsaid moments, the charged silences, the lingering glances. It had always been more than gratitude, more than affection. There was a thread between us, delicate but strong, and we had been tugging at it for weeks. I stepped closer, slowly, until I was standing just in front of him. His eyes searched mine, not pleading, not pushing, just waiting. And something inside me gave way. Maybe it was the wine still warming my blood. Maybe it was the vulnerability of being seen so fully by someone who'd never judged me. Maybe it was just that we were finally standing at the edge of something we could no longer ignore. I leaned in. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't frantic. It was slow. I felt his breath first, then the hesitation in his hand as it hovered at my waist, unsure if it was allowed. I closed the distance between us. His lips met mine, soft and searching. And the world went still. It wasn't the kiss of recklessness. It was the kiss of every glance that had said too much, of every moment we'd tiptoed around what we felt. His hand found my cheek, tentative, and I melted into him, not because I was weak, but because I felt safe. He pulled back first, breath trembling. "Was that real?" he asked, voice barely a whisper. I touched my fingers to my lips. "I think it always was." We sat there, close but not touching, the moment hanging between us like a fragile glass ornament, beautiful and dangerous all at once. Outside, the rain had started again. And inside, we were no longer pretending.